Doro, now back to Ethan Bearman on KGO 810.
Then I see you're walking across the campus, cool professor studying romances.
Ethan Bearman, 25 minutes before 2 p.m. Studio number 415-808-0810. 415-8080-810. Oh, man, college. I remember an eon ago. I don't know how long ago that was. It seems like forever ago. Driving off to college. And, I have kids now. College is different. We have to have certain conversations with our kids, and some of them seem a little bit uncomfortable. So I have the expert. Her name is Dr. Deborah Cohan. She is a professor of sociology at the University of South Carolina, Beaufort, where she teaches and writes about this. So, and has a great article in Psychology Today. I'm going to tweet it out here in a second. College Parents 101, Dr. Cohan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ethan. It's great to be here, and thanks to listeners for this.
Absolutely. Well, look, this is an important conversation, right? I mean, our kids are going off to college, and let's be blunt. College, for all the things that we might have done when we went off to college with partying, and if some of us did, I'm not just saying that we all did. But it was an awkward for me. It was an eye-opening experience in a lot of ways. So we now want to have conversations with our kids to make sure that they're prepared, right? And what are we missing when we send our kids off?
Well, exactly. I think parents are going to be overwhelmed. It's just a natural transitional time for them as well. And, many parents, when kids are going off to college, they're thinking about new directions for their own lives, maybe even for their own relationships, where their relationship has been going, if it's been very child-focused, and they're kind of looking at their partner, potentially going, who are you, and what are we doing here now? They just might be thinking about all sorts of other things as well, anticipating their kids leaving. And so what I notice a lot are that sometimes parents compensate and sort of get really sped up in this frenzied kind of consumer culture that we live in, and really maybe need to slow down a little bit and think about these deeper issues that I had outlined in the article, which I'm happy to kind of recap here if you wish.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about. Because actually, I would start. To me, what I thought was one of the most important things. I mean, some of these, if you're not having these conversations before they're going off to college, having that talk a week before they go to college, I don't know that you're going to make a lot of progress. So that's why it's important. My kids are 8 and 4. These are things I'm working on with my kids now. Like the first one, the body and self-care. Knowing what I tell my kids. Your body is your own. You're beautiful. You're wonderful. You're perfect just the way you are. Your arms, your legs, these are things that you have to talk about now. Nobody else, and I say nobody else is in charge of your body. Only you. Nobody else has the right to tell you what to do with your body. If I'm not starting that as a kid, am I going to make a difference when they're going off to college now and I haven't had that conversation?
Well, that's a great point. And I think, you're absolutely right then as a parent to start these conversations, sort of early and often in an age-appropriate ways. Because everything I laid out really, those are things that have, different applications in elementary school, middle school, high school, et cetera. But they get accentuated in the college experience. And that's what I was really alluding to. I think that, parents should be talking about these things all the time. And kids may not follow any of this advice and any of these ideas.
You mean sexual readiness? Let's be honest. Sexual readiness is one of your topics, right? Number 2.
Exactly.
Number 1 is the body and self-care. Number 2 is sexual readiness. Number 3 is sexual violence. Sexual readiness, we all, and I will never, it's been like burned in my brain, some of the ridiculous things I saw people do in college when you talk about sexual readiness. So even if you have the conversation, at least you're giving them the conversation so they're empowered. Whereas if you never have the conversation about sexual readiness, how will they ever know?
Well, exactly. And so I think that, this article really grew out of all these very intimate conversations I've had in my office over 20 years of teaching and talking with students. And so in some ways it kind of, it encapsulates all of these conversations, and I really kind of tried to boil it down to these top 6 things that I think are just, kind of the utmost importance, and especially now, given where things are in the social landscape. And so when I say, yeah, kids may not follow it, and kids, we know, especially, teenagers, young adults, as they're trying to go out into the world and individuate from their families of origin, and they're launching themselves in college, they're often poo-pooing their parents' advice. And that's why they're often seeking out, professors and mentors and coaches and other people to try to talk to and disclose to. But that's, I guess, why I felt such an urgency to really write this, which was that I feel like I'm often hearing exactly what I wish the parents were listening to with their kids. And I'm often saying to students in my office, gosh, I wish I could, of course we can't, but, of course I wish I could talk to your parents and help them see this, or, sort of see that this is part of the experience and part of just the growth process. But I think if we start the conversations early, we at least benefit our kids with we've planted the seeds really deeply so that at least they know, okay, they can poo-poo it on the surface, but down deep they might know, that's not a bad idea. I think back to my parents saying to me when I was in high school, okay, it's likely that you're going to experiment with alcohol. We know you might, we hope you don't, but you probably will. So if you do, we want you to be careful, and we want you to call us if you get in a situation where you might be getting into a car and people have been drinking. And you know what? At the time, I just, I kind of laughed them off and I minimized it, but it registered. And I really did, I was a designated driver, or I found a designated driver. So I think in some ways this stuff has some impact. I think just as as the adults in this situation, we just have to show students the readiness to have the conversation, or the openness, the fact that we're here with an open heart and we're not going to judge about it. And that's the single thing I think that they fear with their parents, is the sense of the judging.
No, absolutely. Well, that's why, again, when we look at this list, this sexual readiness, body care, sexual violence, alcohol, drugs, in my mind, that's why number 5 and number 6 are maybe as important or more important than the others. 5 is consider friends carefully, and 6 is find mentors. Because if you have the right friends surrounding you, maybe your friends aren't the ones, maybe, if you surround yourself with the wrong friends, they're way into the drug and alcohol and sex and all kinds of risky behaviors. But if you have the right friends who maybe aren't, and they're more serious about their studies and having a healthy social life, that can dramatically affect 1 through 4.
Well, that's exactly it. And we really see that with boys. And that's something I didn't really touch on as much in the piece, and it's probably maybe the next blog, if you will. But where I do talk about sexual violence, and I talk about ways in which girls sometimes do make themselves even more vulnerable than they might already be. And as someone who's really, interested in not promoting a narrative that blames the victim, I was, careful in how I was, crafting that section of the blog. But the other piece that's equally important is that we do know that young men are really affected by their male peers, especially in terms of their attitudes about violence against women. So all of this really does intersect, so that if young men are choosing peer network supports that are really healthy, and also where they have a chance to be vulnerable or show a larger range of their own feelings, not just suck it up, be a man, be tough, go be violent, then if they're actually getting exposed to peers who support a wider range of feeling and emotion, and they're also supported by peers who take a stand on some of these sorts of issues, then other things also are reduced, like the sexual violence piece, which is such a huge thing on campuses right now, as we know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the article is College Parents 101, 6 Things Parents Must Discuss with Their College-Bound Kids. I did tweet out the link as well. Dr. Deborah Cohan, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Really appreciate your time.
Oh, totally a pleasure. Thanks, Ethan.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah, we've got to be thinking about these things now, long before they go off to college. All right. Hey, guess what? KGO 810 is getting you into Concord Pavilion to rock out with Disturbed on August 19th. Tickets are on sale now at livenation.com. A caller number 10 right now on the KGO contest line. 415-995-6810 will win 2 tickets into the show, and you'll qualify into this week's Flyaway Friday drawing for a trip for 2 to the Royal Suites Punta de Mita in Riviera Nayarit, Mexico, furnished by Apple Vacations and Palladium Hotels and Resorts. Tickets are, of course, furnished by Live Nation. Good luck from your friends at KGO 810. 415-995-6810. 415-995-6810. Up next is Not the Onion. I'm Ethan Bearman, KGO 810.
KGO 810 Traffic.
Brought to you by PG&E, and it is 1:45. We've still